My name's Matt Lehmann. I'm from Trinity Church, Colonel Gardens in Adelaide, which is part of a church planting network called the Trinity Network. And we planted 5.5 years ago in Colonel Gardens, and God's been very kind to us. We grew, filled up a service, started a second service. That grew and filled up, and February this year we sent off 86 adults and kids to start a new church in Adelaide, which has been very exciting. In the last 6 months, particularly after planting a church last February, we realised that whilst we've been doing some leadership development and training, it's not been happening anywhere near fast enough. It's probably running about 25% of the speed that it needs to. So we've been very much thinking and praying about what it might look like to be raising up a whole generation of leaders for our church, but also wanting to be a net exporter of leaders to other churches, to church plants and things like that. So yeah, that's been consuming us the last 6 months or so. Well, it's really worrying about our sort of future capacity to keep growing. We don't want to just plant a big church like Trinity Adelaide planting a smaller church at Trinity Colonel Gardens. We don't want to keep planting smaller and smaller churches until we eventually run out of puff. We really want to plant churches that grow and thrive and reach new people for the gospel, but also are great communities in which it's great to be a part of God's family and grow together to maturity as Christians. And a key aspect of that is thinking through how we develop a leadership pipeline so that we don't just plant churches that plant smaller churches that plant smaller churches, but key leaders seem to be the main restrictive factor on that. And if you're going to be a growing church, you need more leaders all the time. If you're going to be a growing church that plants more churches, you need more leaders again. And if you want to also be a net exporter of leaders, that is really taking it to another level. So we're nowhere near that at the moment. God's been kind to us in the past, but we realise this is a key issue if we're going to keep reaching more and more people for the gospel, particularly in Adelaide where we are. So as I considered church planting and was asked by my church to consider it, Geneva was just sort of setting up in Adelaide. I was one of the first people through the assessment process, which was really helpful in identifying a few blind spots and some key areas I needed to work at. I think self-awareness is perhaps the key to good leadership. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, and I think as a team we can work around them, but it requires people to be self-aware. And I think whilst that is something that's part of character and formation, something like the Geneva assessment process is really key in getting a whole bunch of other people who have planted churches, who've been thinking about this, give some feedback on what's really important if we're going to be an effective leader that reaches more people for the gospel. I think going on from that, as our relationship with Geneva has developed over the years, I've really appreciated about being part of a network. So as different Geneva people have come to Adelaide, they've always made the time to catch up and are genuinely interested in what's going on in the life of our church, the things we're struggling with. And often it's been very simple things. It's just sort of, go and listen to these sermons from someone, or here's a great resource we can put you in connection with, we can send through to you, which instead of spending 3 or 6 months trying to work something out, you can often hone right into someone who's really thought and a number of steps ahead of where you are. And it really just fast forwards your ability to keep growing as a church in our ability to reach people with the gospel and for it to be a great place to be a Christian. I've really loved team pastoring in 2018. I've been the last 3 years and I've always enjoyed it. This year particularly so, we've switched to a team pastoring model as we planted this year, and we sent out 4 of our 6 staff members to the plant. And so we've re-employed on a team pastoring sort of basis, and it's been great to have the whole team with us here this year, thinking through just the different aspects of what that looks like, for us to be hearing that together. And one of the key aspects we have as a church is a leadership pipeline issue. So this year being on Volunteer Revolution, it's really speaking directly into the big issues as we're seeing them in a very practical way, which has just been super helpful. I put a post online last night that I think yesterday was one of the days I'd most enjoyed at a conference ever, and it was really just being with a staff team, thinking about gospel ministry, knowing what we don't know, and being in the right place to find answers to our questions from people with a great gospel heart, with good theology, but also good practice to go along beside that. So it's just been brilliant.